always talk about your project to everyone. Don't keep it secret. Even though it's a good idea, people will say, oh, it's a good idea. They will think about stealing it, but they will not never make the actual step of building a company around it.
What's up, guys? It's me again, Jay Christ, and we are now on episode 35 of the Design Life Show. In this week episode, I sit down with Kevin Tan. Kevin is currently the Incubation Program Manager of MakeSense Philippines and a former startup founder of various startups in France. In this episode, we talk about his ground-up stories of founding his own startup, what are the biggest shifts that he made to follow his passion, how he overcome procrastination to achieve real progress in life. We also talk about Simon Sinek talk, how great leaders inspire action, and the art of pitching ideas, and much, much more. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I do. This is really one of the interesting episodes that I made with Kevin. So I really hope you enjoy this and find value from it. And if you love this podcast and you love what I'm doing, you can also support the show by visiting patreon.com/TDLS, or you can go to thedesignlifeshow.com. There's the button or the donate button at the top. You can know more about how you can support the show. So I think we can go now on this episode. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. You're listening to The Design Life Show, a podcast that's helping everyone grow to live a meaningful and creative life. It's me, Jay Christ, a designer from the Philippines, best known for being an advocate of essentialism and optimism. I'm sitting down with awesome people to talk about their journey, their process, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Hey everyone, it's me again, Jay Christ, and thank you so much for listening onto this week podcast again. And I'm really stoked and really pumped and really excited to talk with our friend right here, Kevin Tan. So we met on a particular event that was Youth Hack Calabarzon, happened last September 21. So I'm really I invited him to the show because I find it that he can share a lot of values on the podcast. So without further ado, here's my guest, Kevin Tan. Kevin, how are you? Thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Hey Jay, thanks for inviting me. I'm really good today. What about you?
Yeah, I'm fine, really. It's good. So thank you so much for dropping by on the podcast. So for our listeners, just to give context, can you share a little bit about your background and what are you doing right now?
Okay, so my name is Kevin. I'm actually from France, in Paris. I was an entrepreneur before. I founded like 2 tech companies in France for the last 2 years and a half. And then I just left those companies I founded. So I sold them and I quitted those company. So they're still existing today for another adventure because I was looking for something else. And then I decided to move to the Philippines. And now I'm working for an organization, French organization called MakeSense, where I'm leading an incubation program for startups.
So thank you so much for sharing that, Kevin. And I think you can share a lot of value for the startup community here in the Philippines, especially Filipino startup founders who really into founding their own startup or their own company. For those who for those who don't know about incubation and MakeSense, what's the role of your organization for the startup community here in the Philippines?
Okay, so to tell you more first about MakeSense. So MakeSense is a French organization that's also present worldwide.
Yes.
So first, it's a community of people. So how MakeSense was born was that there's some global issue that need to be tackled in our world, social and environmental. And to do that, there's a lot of citizens all around the world that want to contribute, volunteer, and take a little bit of their time to contribute to tackle those issues, but they don't know how to do it. So we MakeSense first is a community of citizen volunteers around the world in more than 100 cities around the world, with 35,000 citizens that contribute to help social entrepreneurs, organizations create impact and build a better world for tomorrow. So it started like this as a community of volunteers only. So it wasn't a company at first. It was only like a community of volunteers.
Yes.
Step by step, we decided to move a little bit more forward and help more social entrepreneurs and organizations build on their impact to create a better society for the future. So that's why now MakeSense is much more than that. We empower all the actors of civil society. So it can be like citizens, social entrepreneurs, organizations, to have the tools and the methodology and the approach to actually build on impact. So for that, we created an incubation program.
Yep.
So we have created this since 2013 to give you a little bit more insight for the people that don't know what's an incubation program.
Yes, please.
So the definition of an incubator, the proper definition of an incubator, is actually the little box that we put the early born babies in the hospital to keep them from to help them finish and grow like safely before taking them out in the real world. So when a baby is born early, you put them in an incubator to help them grow. And an incubator for social startups is kind of is kind of the same. Basically, it's like a little environment. So it's an organization where early stage startup go into. So it's the first stages of the development of your startup, and we help those startups basically grow safely before getting into the real world. So what do we provide usually as an incubator? So I'm talking about MakeSense incubator, but incubators in general. They have like several assets they can provide. They can provide space, they can provide mentorship, they can provide network, they can provide sometimes funding. So this is what an incubator do. And the last thing about MakeSense is organization part. So we're helping social entrepreneurs on their project, but what we want to do is to create real systemic change into bigger companies and old companies to help them also change how they work, how they contribute, how they create value.
Yeah, it's really interesting to know more about MakeSense because you don't need to be a startup founder, or I think even designers or creative professionals can create an impact by joining this community, right?
Yeah. So basically, the idea of MakeSense is anyone can contribute. You don't need to be you don't need to have any special skills. You don't need to have any special knowledge, experience, talent. The idea is that everyone can contribute to create a better world for tomorrow.
Yeah. This is really interesting. I think we've talked this last event on our youth hack, right? So I think creating an impact, especially in today's world of there's a lot of bullshit jobs that are coming in, right? There's a lot of things that in the world right now that's really non-essential things, right? So I'm really advocating the essentials or essentialism in general, because I think as a creative or as a human being, we need to create values for others, right? And MakeSense is I think one of the great community out there that can support you, help you grow, and build a better world, right? So I just want to go back about your entrepreneurial journey or your journey. So uh, uh, if you can share about how you started, or what's the first thing that you do before you been into this incubation or startup world, can you share a little bit about that? What's your
Yeah,
what's your experience?
sure. I was always, since my university time, so a couple
Yeah.
of years ago, like a lot of students, I was
Yes.
curious about the startup ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
but I always went to events and got connected to workshops, conferences,
Wow.
people in this kind of work, and just like getting informed.
Yes.
So, like a lot of people, at some point, I thought, why not launching my own project? And
Yes.
at some point, when you're a student or you like a young graduate or
Yeah.
just like
Interns.
you're on
Yes.
the first years of your working life, you just figured out like I'll do it later. You think a lot of people think this, and I was thinking the same as well.
Yeah.
Like at some point build my own startup or my own business, but
Yes.
I'll need more experience. I'll do it later. I'll need more money. I think I'll do
Procrastination.
it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like this,
Yeah.
but like step by step, moving forward, and we're getting closer to the end of my university life. I had to make a choice. As in France, what happened when you finish university, usually for your last 6 months, is you have to do an internship to finish and kind of close your university path. So as I was doing an entrepreneurial master degree, I had the chance to either do like a classic internship in a corporate company,
Yeah.
or they offered us a chance to actually join an incubator to build your own project. So
Wow.
I was questioning myself, should I go, should I not go? And at some point, like what made me move forward and choosing actually the entrepreneurial path was that I just said to myself, if you don't do it now, you won't do it later. Why? Because I was at the point a couple of years ago where you have basically no responsibility, like not much. Like you have no, I was living with my parents a couple of years ago, so I had no rent to pay. I had no credit because I
Yeah.
haven't bought a house. I don't have kids.
100%.
So you have kind of low responsibility at some point. So that's what made me think like, okay, let's try. And even though it fails, not like a big deal. The
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
in a way is the journey and not the end destination. So I wanted to try, and that's how I got into the entrepreneurial world.
100%. That's really, I think, one of the things that every creative individual or every founder or every aspiring founders that needs to understand, because failure is just part of the process. And I think we need to keep moving forward as much as we do. That's a great journey you have there, Kevin. So thank you so much for sharing that, and I really really love that. For those for those years that you're finding yourself just procrastinating in as so to speak, if that's the right word to, so how do you, what's the biggest shift or mindset shift that you've been through for to starting your own startup, starting your own project or passion project? What's the biggest shift that you've overcome to get
What do you mean
started,
by what do you mean
or
by shift? Like, exactly.
shifting from from uh, uh, being an employee or intern, right? So something like that, to to pursue your passion as a as an entrepreneur,
Yeah. So the main thing, there's a couple of shifts that you have to do, I suppose. Talking about myself, I think one of the most challenging thing a couple of years ago was uh, actually being proactive. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
basically, all your life, if in almost any situation, when you were a kid, when you're a student, when you're working, or whatever, uh, there's always been someone telling you what to do, or
Yeah.
when to do it,
Yeah.
and for why you're doing it. So when you
100%.
were in
Mm-hmm.
school, teacher was telling you learn this, do that, write this paper, and they're telling you the reason why behind it. When you were doing it like sports, it was always the same. Like the coach was telling you do this because you need to improve on your this skill, that skill. When you were working, like your boss was telling you to do this, do that. But when you're entrepreneur, especially in the first moment, you have no idea because nobody's telling you what to do and when to do it for what reason. So if you're not proactive, and you won't achieve anything. And that
100%.
shift was the most hard at first, like how to
Yeah.
move on from,
Mm-hmm.
you know, an expecting kind of mindset. So you're
Yes.
expecting people to help you and guide you through your what you need to do to actually make up your own task and your own
Process. Yeah.
responsibility to, being proactive and actually achieve things. So that was the biggest mind shift I had to face when I started.
Wow, that's really great. And how do you overcome those struggles? Because I think it's really challenging, especially in Philippines. In the Philippines, there's a lot of mindset, limiting beliefs or limiting mindset that are, that are keeping that makes an hindrance to our progress, to keep creating or to keep doing what we love. So how do you overcome those challenges? I think it's really valuable for those who are really stuck right now or just getting started. Can you share a little bit about your insights on um, how to overcome those mindsets or shifting experience?
Yeah. So the idea first is to tell yourself that you have to be passionate at first. So what I always say, because sometimes I deal with, like, for example, for the youth hack or for a lot of different events,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I go and meet students or like young professionals that want to actually
Mm-hmm.
launch their project. It can be like small project with my startups. But
Yes.
what I always tell them is like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, try to be passionate at first. Like, don't be an entrepreneur to be an entrepreneur. Don't look for the money. Don't look for the fame. Don't look for
Yeah.
to be on the spotlight.
100%.
Before all this, you have like a really long, hard journey. So you need to be passionate about what you do. And so don't be an entrepreneur just to look for the fame or be on the spotlight. That would be the first thing. The second thing is to put yourself in the mindset that you actually need to achieve. So meaning that you have a goal, you have to set up goals. And if you don't achieve your goals, like nothing's going to happen. And you have to put yourself in that mindset. How? What I do for myself is, instead of, I have like a big objective I put to myself.
Yes.
So it can be like anything. I do it also for my personal life. So what I want to do this or build this before the end of the year or for next year. So you put like big objective and you just debunk this into like small objective. So the image I would use all the time is, you have a huge mountain to climb and you like on the bottom of the mountain. And if you can't see the edge of the mountain, it's hard to keep focused because you're like, okay, I'm climbing, but where's the edge? I can't see it. I keep climbing. It seems like infinite, right?
Yeah,
But if you're
100%.
climbing a mountain and you see like step by step that you're moving forward, like you see an edge and then you climb that edge and then you see like, okay, there's another step that's a little 100 meter, 200 meter up. So you're climbing like step by step. You can move forward without, so you are accomplishing small steps.
Yes.
And you feel like you're moving forward instead of having like the infinite journey that in front of you. So step by step achievement are really important.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I think Kevin has shared a lot of value on that topic. So, in general, taking action is really the key and being consistent, right? So, I think if you really want to follow your passion, create things, or create your own startup and build build it from ground up, I think taking action is really the key to keep you on the loop or make it more progressive, right? So thank you so much for sharing that, Kevin. Just to let's go back about the make sense, right? So social entrepreneurship is one of the main or the main or what you call it, social entrepreneurship, right? So for those, I'm a little bit dumb about this, right? So I think can you share a little bit about that? How can we start on building an impact, or how can you help someone to build or take action on their project or their startup by doing or share by joining the community?
Okay, so a few questions there. So to answer first, to give a little bit insight for the one that are listening and not really familiar with what social entrepreneurship is, to make it quick, like a couple of years ago, and the common conception is that either you have an organization that's driven by profit, so the main goal of the organization is to make the most out of their assets to create a lot of money. Yes. So that's the classic scheme of like a company. And on the other side, there's organization that are not driven at all by money and driven like only by the impact they can have on the environment for the people. So we're talking about NGOs, for example, that are kind of. So they were like those two. Most of the conception is there's only those two kind of organization, and you're either the one or the other. So either you're a company that's trying to make the most money out of it, out of your asset, either you're a company or organization that's only trying to help people, help the environment. We're talking about like, I don't know, Greenpeace or stuff like that, WWF, and other organizations like that. Yes. But what we don't know, and people usually don't know, that is it's actually a spectrum. So you're either a little bit more on the profit side or a little bit more on the social side, but it's always a spectrum. Every company is on the spectrum. And what's the social entrepreneurship is basically companies, startups, project initiatives that are driven by impact. So people are building projects to actually be impact driven first. So what it means, like those startups and entrepreneurs want to build startups that, of course, that are trying to create the most impact on an environment or on the people. But instead of like the NGO model, where NGOs receive like corporate funds, donation, so they're not like financially independent as they're not making money themselves, they're receiving money from other organizations. A social entrepreneur or a social enterprise is actually having his own sustainable business model. So we're talking about a company that's actually generating revenue and profit, but the main purpose and mission of this company is actually create a better world. So basically that's social.
Wonderful. Yes. That's great.
And and to answer your second question about how MakeSense is helping social entrepreneurs actually create those companies, we analyze a little bit the situation in the Philippines, and it's actually quite different because MakeSense is in several countries in the world. We our headquarters in Paris, in France, but we're also in Mexico, in Peru, Lebanon. So we are in 7 countries, and in the Philippines, quite different because what we realized is that there's a lot of organization in the Philippines that actually helping social entrepreneurs grow their project, but there's no organizations that actually help social entrepreneurs actually start their project. So the hardest part of the journey,
Agree.
most of the time, is how you go from 0 to 1, right?
Yeah.
Like once you're at 1, okay, if you're executing well and making the right decision, it's much easier. But when you're alone or only 2 people with a computer in a room, what's next? So that's where MakeSense comes in.
Yeah.
And where we help the social entrepreneurs actually go from 0 or almost 0. So really early stage, you have just an idea, you have a concept, you have just a prototype, or like really early stage of a company, go from there to actually a startup. So this is where it makes sense come.
Yeah, that's really great. And we actually talk about it offline, right? So about that, about all of that that Kevin mentioned, and we also talk about pitching. And can you? I think a lot of creatives or a lot of aspiring founders is a little bit dumb, especially in the Philippines, or they don't know how to pitch their startup ideas, their design ideas, or something like that. Can you share a little bit about how to pitch correctly? And I think it's really valuable for startup founders or aspiring founders as well. If we hear that from you as well, can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So pitching is kind of like a complex exercise, but also an easy one. I'll try to make it short, but like to the main point, the main idea is there's a really nice talk that sums it up about made by Simon Sinek. Maybe you are familiar with
the author of Start with Why.
Yeah, exactly. This one, like great leaders inspire action, and people like basically what to keep. Like I would advise everybody to watch it if they haven't. It was probably one of the most famous TED Talk ever. It's called Great Leaders Inspire Action. And what he says basically is like people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. Always start with the why, and from why you go to why you do it, how you do it, and what you actually do. So this is the key point of pitching. So always start with the why you do it. So this is the main point.
100%.
The pitching exercise, you have to keep it short. Basically, you have to entertain and keep your audience, whoever they are, if it's 1 person, 2 person, 10, 100, 1,000, you have to keep your audience 100% focused during the pitching time. So what I always say is like a pitching should not last more than 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes. And there's no defined structure on a good pitch. So as long as you have all the elements in the pitch, you are good to go. So you can put it in any logical order you want. It works. For the pitching structure, it's really easy. It's in 5 or 6 points, depending on what you need to tell. But basically, you start with a hook. So it can be like anything to catch the attention. And then there's 4 or 5 points you need to develop. Who you are, why you're doing this. So the problem you're facing or tackling with what you're doing. So who you are, why you're doing this, are you doing, how are you doing it, and basically the action. So this is the structure: who, why, what, how, and you finish by the call to action. A little bit more bigger note on the call to action is basically you need, at the end of the pitch, you're always pitching for a reason. You don't pitch for nothing. Even though you're at a networking event and you're pitching like yourself, or for example, you just an intern looking for a job. And when you present yourself at a networking event, you're actually pitching. You're pitching not a project, but you're pitching yourself. And when you pitch, you're always expecting something. So at the end of every pitch, you need to have what we call a call for action. So it's asking for something. So you're asking people to like your Facebook page. You're asking people for their business card. You're asking people to go on your website. You're asking people for anything. But you have to ask something at the end of the pitch. So this is really important. And Yeah, and to finish, maybe some quick tips. So body language is really important. Your posture, your
Mm-hmm.
voice, smile is really important when you pitch.
Yeah.
Use
Eye contact.
storytelling
Mm-hmm.
to really perform well. Share
Yes.
your emotions, calibrate. Don't speak too fast, too
Yes.
slow.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you articulate when you talk. Uh, what I always say is like, don't use notes. Pitching with notes is terrible.
Yeah.
So you always perform better without notes and look better
Yeah.
without. You actually could look your audience into the eye. And pitching is an exercise of practice. So you have to
Mm.
practice a lot to be good at pitching. But basically, this is a short overview
Yes.
of how to be a good pitcher.
That's it. A really valuable that from Kevin, and I think it's really nice to take action on that points or that Kevin did or add on this spot or share on this podcast. And I will surely put all the links that we've mentioned about Simon Sinek and the good other points that Kevin's share, and you can check that out. So I will just need to to put this out, Kevin. So I think a lot, the common misconception or the common questions for aspiring startups or aspiring founders is, should I pitch my ideas in a prototype phase or a working 100% working system, something like that? Is it do you consider traction, something like that, or other things to be considered, to be incubated on Make Sense? Can you share your values about your insight?
You don't need like a special stage to pitch your project. You
Yeah.
can pitch it anytime, even though it's only an idea. One misconception or question that all the time we
Mm-hmm.
face is,
Yes.
should I share my project? Maybe that person or that company is going to steal my ideas. But
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
this is not the what I always say is like, always talk about your project to everyone. Don't keep
Yeah.
it secret. Even
Yes.
though it's a good idea, people will say, "Oh, it's a good idea." They will think about stealing it, but they will
Yeah.
not never make the actual step of building a company
Yeah.
around it. So always talk about your
Mm-hmm.
project. And for Make Sense in particular, Make Sense Incubator, we are looking for any kind of early stage project. So if you don't need to have like traction,
Yeah.
working prototype. Of course, it's better to have traction and working
Yes.
prototype, but you have a good idea, it's good enough to pitch. And
Mm-hmm.
what we bet, it makes sense. What we bet on the most is the people. Like the most important thing is
The
the people.
people. Yeah.
Project can change
Mm-hmm.
and they will change. You will start with an idea at first and then you figured out this is not good, so you
Yep.
change again, you're pivoting. So you're adapting your project to the market, to the people you're meeting and your customers. But the ideas change, but the people don't. So what we're betting on the most, and what investors, incubators,
Mm-hmm.
companies, corporate companies, when they're funding you or they want to incubate you or support you, what
Yeah.
the most important thing they're betting on is the people, your
Yes.
team, the founding
Mm-hmm.
team, and not the project most of the time.
That's it. So that's really valuable, and a lot of I think a lot of creatives or aspiring founders that are listening to this session is getting a lot of insights on or tips for that as well. And I think one of the key terms that Kevin shared is to change is inevitable, but taking you need to take action on any of your ideas, and just share your ideas into the world and make an impact. And that's really one of the most important thing that as a social entrepreneur or whatever you are doing right now, so make an impact, bring value to others, or to make a better world, right? So thank you so much, Kevin, for that massive information and massive tips that
You're
you shared.
welcome.
I really really appreciate it. So just to wrap up the show, what is the best links that they can find you if they have any questions, or if they want to meet you, or to get some insights as well about their ideas? What's the best links or to reach
Sure.
you
You
out?
can just You can just go either on our Facebook page, MakeSense PH, so directly on Facebook, or on our website, philippines.makesense.org. And to reach me out directly for any questions or any more info, you can email me out at kevin@makesense.org.
And that's it. So I will surely put all the links on our show notes. So if you're listening to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, just scroll down and you will find all the links that we've mentioned on this podcast session with Kevin. And if you are listening to the actual site, and you will surely see all the links and the recommendations or insights that we've mentioned in this podcast. And thank you so much again, Kevin, and thank you for sharing a lot of values on this episode. And I hope you enjoy this as well.
Thank you very much, Jay, for inviting me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the Design Life Show. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/TDLS or go to thedesignlifeshow.com. And you can find the donate button on the top to learn more on how you can support the show. And for some cool extra stuff, you can get an access to my private contents like AMAs, where I take questions exclusively from Patreon subscriber, or check out other stuff I made where I talk about essentialism, design, creativity, and business. I give a lot of value into this podcast that can't be seen anywhere else online. Again, that's patreon.com/TDLS. Thanks for listening to the show, and see you guys again next week. Stay awesome.